Hello, listeners. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us for something a little bit different today. We want to give you some extremely powerful English tips, which today are questions you should be asking your English teacher during your English classes, especially if you want to know more, get more from your lessons, or if you feel confused or don't understand something.
So that's right. Have you ever felt confused about something in your English class, but you didn't quite know how to ask your teacher for help? Or do you want to get the most out of your English classes with your English teacher? And what are some of the things that you can say when you don't understand something? Today's tips are going to help you with each and every one of these questions and more.
Yes, they are. These questions come from our more than 20 combined years of teaching. Both of us have found that when a student asks good questions, like the questions that we're going to share with you today, that student tends to understand better and then improve more quickly than students who don't ask us when they're confused or don't ask us anything, even if they don't understand completely.
So, these questions would be perfect for your group English classes, your one on one English classes, and they would work especially well with your English teacher on an online platform like italki, which has thousands of native English teachers all over the world ready to help you improve your language skills. Now, I've personally used the speaking and online language platform italki for all of my Spanish and French teachers to really work on my speaking and conversation skills. So we decided High Level Listening would love to partner with italki to get you a discount of $10 of free credits after your first class with an italki teacher. So if you'd like to, check the link in our bio and description below to check it out.
Yes, okay. So let's help you get the most out of your English classes. Again, there are 20 questions in total, and we'll give you examples of all of them. Plus, at the end, we will show you some example dialogues where Kat's a student and I'm the teacher, and we'll show you how these questions sound in real classes and show you why they're so helpful. And as well as that, we've also made a PDF download of all of these questions. So you can have a copy online and you can use it in your next English or italki lesson. And it will be the best one you've ever had because you'll know exactly what to ask your teacher to get the most out of the class. So let's get started. Kat, what is the first question you can ask your English teacher?
Well, we decided to start with, how do you say this? How do you say this? Now, this we can change to a word that you don't know how to pronounce. If you want to know the pronunciation or how to pronounce a word, you think you'd have to use, how do you pronounce this? What is the pronunciation? But it's actually an even simpler question in English. How do you say this? If I'm asking my Spanish teacher in English, how do you say this? How do you say this? Com- comf- comfortable? Comfortable? How do you say this? So, if we are pointing to something in our book, if we are showing something to our online teacher in the video lesson, how do you say this? Now, just as a quick note, we don't often use the word speak in this situation. We use say. Because how do you say this is how do you pronounce this? What's the pronunciation? We use the word speak, like I speak English, I speak Spanish and French. We speak a language, but we say or pronounce a word. So I see a lot of students asking me, how do you speak this? That's not very common, and that's not a good verb to use in this situation. So you'll feel more confident simply saying, how do you say this? All right, Mark, you want to ask the next question?
If you have a question about spelling, you can ask, how do you spell that? How do you spell that? If you have a word that looks like confusing and it's not clear how you should spell it, you can ask a teacher, how do you spell that? If you're having an online class, you can ask, can you type that for me? Can you type that for me? Type is the verb when you write something on a keyboard. In italki classes and online classes, you can type a word and it will appear on the screen. Then you can see the word, you can see the correct spelling, and you can make a note in your own files or your own diary. So if you hear a word and it's not obvious how it's spelled, sorry, how do you spell that? It's polite, especially with a British teacher, to say, sorry, if you have a question and you need to interrupt, sorry, how do you spell that? Or, sorry, can you type that for me? Can you type that word for me? I'm a visual learner. I need to see a word in writing before I can remember it. If I can't spell it, then I struggle to remember it. So this question is really useful for me when I'm learning languages. How do you spell that? Can you type that for me? Okay, Kat, what is the next question you can ask your teacher?
So I have a few extra questions that you can ask that are quite similar to how do you say this? So I have the word right here and sorry, how do you say this? My pronunciation is not so good. How do you say this? How do you say this? Now we've got some that are quite casual. So if that feels a little simple for you, these are some other casual ones that I would use as well. Am I saying that right? Am I saying that right? This is also very helpful if you are meeting someone in an international conference and you want to pronounce their name correctly. Jonathan, am I saying that right? Am I saying that right? Just double checking. Just double checking. So we could say the word comfortable. Am I saying that right? Am I saying that right? Very common, casual way to ask for the pronunciation and if you are pronouncing the word correctly. Another one is that the right way to say that? Is that the right way to say that? Same thing. Introduce the word comfortable. Is that the right way to say that? I don't know how to say this word here. This is a good one if you want to show someone something. Maybe in your online lesson, you might highlight a word or type the word. I don't know how to say this word here. Type, 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 send. I don't know how to say this word here. Point or type and send. All right, let's continue on to the next question.
So sometimes you see a word and you know how to say it and you know how to write it or spell it, but the meaning of the word is not super clear. So if you want the vocabulary definition of a word, you can ask, what do you mean by, what do you mean by, and then the word that's confusing you. For example, what do you mean by wandering around? Maybe wandering is a new word for you and you've never seen it. And even in a sentence, it's not totally clear what it means. What do you mean by wandering around? Your teacher should say, oh, it means walking casually for fun. Oh, okay, wandering around, make a note. Or what do you mean by went over? What do you mean by went over to my friend's house? Oh, it means I went to my friend's house, but often we use over with friends' houses and homes. Okay, make a note. Another question you can ask, or another thing you can say, if you don't recognize a word, I don't recognize, and then the word. So, I don't recognize out and about. I don't recognize out and about. What does that mean? Then your teacher can explain. Or maybe you see another random word. I don't recognize cage. Is that the right way to say that? Cage? I don't recognize cage. And the teacher can explain what that means. Cage is often a little metal box or container for an animal, like a hamster. So, yeah, you can get the definition of almost any word or phrase with those two questions. What do you mean by that? Or, I don't recognize that. Kat, do you know any other ways you can get definitions?
Absolutely. So I think what Mark said is probably the best one. What do you mean by this? I don't recognize this. These would also be helpful in work English as well. If you're not understanding something and you'd like some clarification. So, what does the email mean by this? Or what does the boss mean by this? And, oh, he means this. Here's some clarification. Here's some better understanding of that. Now, one of the simplest ones that I often use, what does that mean? Hey, Mark, what does this high level word mean? Right? What does this advanced vocabulary word mean? What does this word mean? What does that mean? Epitome. What does that mean? What does epitome mean? So we often use the word MEAN to mean what is the definition of that? What is that word and what is the meaning? Right? So we often use this word, what does that mean? What does that mean? Now, I think this is probably the most direct form, and I do like the other ones as well. What do you mean by this? I don't recognize this. I think those are also very good ones. But if you're in a pinch, um, I don't, I don't know that word. What does that mean? I'm not sure about this word. What does this mean? Then we can easily help you and clarify, give you a good definition for it as well.
So one other tip. Remember, it's what does that
Mm,
mean? What does? A
good.
lot of
Yes.
times students say, what is? It's not that. What
No.
does? What does that mean? It's a verb.
Good. Yes. Very good point. Okay. So here's another question. What's the difference between this and that? What's the difference between this and that? Now, I know most of our students, especially the advanced level students, have been learning English since they were kids. And I know at school you probably had a long list of words that you had to translate from your language to English, from English back to your language. And there are lots of similar words in English. Maybe you studied that vocabulary and you remember these words, but you're not exactly sure which one to use and which one might be better. So, if you're a little confused and something has a very similar meaning, you can ask this question. What's the difference between this and that? Sometimes words are very similar, but might have a positive word or a more negative word. That's very common in English, and hopefully your teacher can give you some better insight. So, an example might be, what's the difference between jogging and running? What's the difference between go to work and get to work? Both of these phrases, jogging and running, quite similar. Go to work and get to work. You might have heard them 100 times in vocabulary classes, but you never actually asked, well, wait, what's the difference between go to work and get to work? Now, if you do have this question, I will tell you, what's the difference between jogging and running? Well, for me, jogging is more casual and often a bit slower. I go jogging. I don't go running. Running feels quite fast and a bit more serious. What's the difference between go to work and get to work? Get to work is to arrive at work. Go to work is your journey or your path to work, and get to work is when you arrive. Again, very similar. We hear these verbs all the time, but do you know the difference? What's the difference between this and that? All right, so if we want to compare some words, maybe we've got some ideas and some vocabulary lists locked away in our brain. Mark, what's another good question that we can ask kind of to learn new vocabulary or to compare it to something we've had before?
Is this the same as that? Is this the same as that? That can be the similar word that you've seen. I think this question's very useful, especially if you use translators, online translators. Sometimes you can enter a word and see the translation, and it gives you like 4 different synonyms. And not all of these words can be used the same way. Sometimes one is very casual, one is very formal, or one is slang, but one is more appropriate for the office. The translator doesn't give you that context. The translator just gives you 4 words, but you cannot choose any one, and it's fine. So in that situation, when you have multiple options, you can ask your teacher what is the best one to use. Is this the same as this? Like, is running the same as jogging? In a recent class, I got, is weird the same as eccentric? And actually, they're quite different. Weird is quite negative, eccentric is more positive. So asking this question can help you choose the right word. Might say, search, is that the same as look for? Yes, search for something, look for something. Or send over, is that the same as send? Yes, native speakers like to add phrasal verbs even if we don't have to. If you're talking about the differences between British and American English, this can be helpful too. Cookie, is this the same as biscuit? That's a big answer. We don't have time to cover that, but they're different in different countries. And maybe it's something simple like, is test the same as exam? Are they the same? Yes, an English test, an English exam, that's basically the same thing. So it can help you expand your vocabulary by finding different words for the same thing. And this question can help you choose the right word for the right situation. Okay, Kat, what's another question you can ask your English teacher?
So, some of my students have asked me, what is a better way to say, please repeat? Please repeat. That's a very common, just quick thing we usually see in textbooks. If you didn't understand something, you say, please repeat. Please repeat. It sounds a little formal, and you might confuse a native speaker if you look at them and you say, please repeat. What?
Mm.
Repeat? Oh, repeat. Oh, yeah. Okay. An easier way and a much more common way, could you say that again? Could you say that again? Oh, sorry. Could you say that again? This is so common that native speakers will immediately think, oh, I'll say that again. Please repeat sounds like a kind of a radio robot. Please repeat. Please repeat. So a much more common and a phrase that someone will definitely understand right away. Could you say that again? Could you say that again? Could you say that again? Now, this is even better because your teacher might have been talking about a grammar point, or they might have been talking about something quite interesting for a couple of minutes. If at the end of their little conversation you say, please repeat, could you say that again? We might think, which part? Which part? So this is very common to talk about the pieces of the conversation. The beginning, the middle, and the end, the first part, the middle part, and the end. So, or the last part. We use the last part. Oh, could you say that last part again? I don't need you to repeat your entire 2 minutes of speaking. Just, could you say that last part again? Could you say that first part again? This is really helpful when, okay, I'm listening to you, but I didn't quite catch the beginning. I didn't catch that last part. I didn't quite catch that word in the middle. All right, so this is especially good for specific words or parts of the conversation that you didn't quite catch. So, could you say that again? Could you say that first part again? Could you say that last part again? All right, so let's ask Mark, what do you have for another question?
And if you have trouble hearing a word, if your teacher said something, but you didn't recognize the word, and you can ask them, sorry, what was the word after? What was the word after? So maybe I understood most of the words in the sentence, but there was one I knew the word before it and I didn't recognize the word after. So, sorry, what was the word after shopping? Your teacher says, shopping mall. Shopping mall. Mall. Okay. How do you spell that? Can you type that for me? MALL. There you go. So if you didn't hear a word or didn't catch it or didn't recognize it, you know 2 questions to help you get the word again and the spelling. You could ask, what does that mean? And the teacher can explain. So you now have all these questions and you can get lots of information from your teacher at any time. So what was that word after shopping? Shopping mall. Okay. Similar question. If you recognize most of the words, but there was one word you didn't catch, what was that word before? Sorry, what was that word before? So I know the word after it, but I didn't hear the one before it. Maybe it's an adjective because they often come before. So sorry, what was that word before village? Picturesque. A picturesque village. Okay, picturesque. Am I saying that right? Yes. So the word before, I didn't know. And so you can get exactly the information you need from your teacher. What was that word after? What was that word before? And this helps your teacher repeat only the words that you need to hear again. They won't waste time sharing a whole long sentence or story. So you're saving time and getting exactly what you need. Okay, Kat, let's have another question. What more could you ask your English teacher?
I wanted to say something quick. When you were asking these questions, I felt like a better teacher because you were
Mm,
asking the right questions. I had the answers for you, and then you understood something. As teachers, we're always trying to help, but we can't help you if you are just quiet. It doesn't
mm.
make us feel better as teachers for you to just say, yeah, I understand. Okay, yeah. We feel so bad if you do not truly understand something. So, all of these questions help your teacher have confidence in what they are teaching as well. We love when our students get something. Oh, okay, got it. Yes, awesome, good. I feel like a good teacher now because I've answered your questions, made it clear, you know how to spell it, you know the meaning. So it does make us feel good. And we love our students, so we want you to feel good too.
It's
We
true.
want to make
But
sure that
also,
you understand.
true, I guess on top of that, if a student asks a really good question, then actually as teachers, we can learn something about English that maybe we didn't realize. Like we grow up as native speakers, we grew up with English. So sometimes we don't question certain things. We just accept that this is this and this is that. And we don't question why it is. But sometimes the students ask very questions we've never considered before. And we have to think about it and define a difference. And so we learn too. You learn, and then we learn something about English that we never considered as well.
So let's keep going with some of our questions. I had just a few more questions that I also thought would be helpful. If you're asking for a synonym, which is a similar word, we could ask this question. Is there another word for this? You're thinking, I kind of know this word, but is there another word for this? Is there another word for happy? Yeah, glad? That's it. That's it. So sometimes, we're searching in our brains for words and connections to other words we've learned. This is a good one for synonyms. Is there another word for this? Sometimes we're looking for antonyms, which is the opposite. What's the opposite of on? Off. Okay. What's the opposite of in? Out. So, what's the opposite of something? This is good for antonyms. Synonyms, similar. Antonyms, different. Is there another word for this? What's the opposite of this? And then it The word looks okay, but you're not exactly sure how to use it. Could you give me an example? Could you give me an example of glad? Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Could you give me an example of this word? Could you give me an example of this grammar point? Could you give me an example of this expression? Very helpful when you need just a little bit more examples, just another version of the word so that it helps you learn and kind of connect it to your other words as well. All right, we're coming kind of to the end of some of these questions. Mark, do you have any more to add?
Yes, I have a good grammar question. If you're interested in constructing the sentence correctly, or if you're doing a writing lesson, then asking questions about grammar, super important. One easy question. Do I have to add? Do I have to add something? This is useful for things like gerunds, prepositions, or extra letters here and there. For example, do I have to add ing? Ing is a gerund, and these are all over English, and they're very important in writing. For example, after keep, do I have to add ing? Yes, you do. So I keep trying, I keep practicing, I keep learning. We need an ing. Add is to put the ing, put it in. Do I have to add? Have to, because it's a rule. You have to follow the rules. You might say, after great, do I have to add ly, like it went greatly? Or, no, actually you don't. Just say, it worked great, or it went great. So this question can also help you find exceptions to rules as well. So if you're really interested in the grammar and getting every word correct all the time, this is a great question to ask. Do I have to add this? Okay. What's another question you could ask, Kat?
So, we're going to shift just a little bit. We're going to be talking a bit about culture. Now, of course, not everything translates perfectly to English. Not every festival, not every holiday, not every expression translates perfectly into English. So, this is kind of a good way to share our culture. And I like this phrase a lot. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? In other words, does this exist in English? Does this exist in the United States? Is that a thing? Is that a thing in English? Is that a thing in the US? Do you say this in English? Do you use that in English? Is that a thing? This is a good way to share something from your culture. You might have a very specific expression and you translate it exactly into English. And you say the expression and I say, what is that? You're like, "Oh, it, that's not a thing? That's not a thing in English?" Oh, you don't say that in English? Oh, is that a thing in English? So, we could be talking about the Easter holiday that's coming up. Oh, I'm celebrating Easter with my family this weekend. Is that a thing in the United States? Oh, yeah, we love Easter. We love to celebrate Easter. So, sharing your culture, your holidays, your expressions, and kind of fun and interesting language, you can ask, is that a thing? Is that a thing? Very comfortable question talking about culture, holidays, etc. All right, Mark, do you want to give us one more question structure?
Yes. Again, if you want to focus on grammar and you want to make sure that your sentence structures are right, sometimes you see lots and lots of examples. A good teacher should give you lots of examples so you can start to see the patterns and start to see the consistent structures. So if you see a sentence and you think that you can try to change it and you think you can see the logic, you can try to make a new sentence or try something new. Can I say, or slightly more formally, could I say, could I say, so maybe you're practicing phrasal verbs with your teacher and they show you take my keys out, take my wallet out, take my card out. So you see the pattern and you ask, so can I say take my phone out? Yes, you can, 100%. Take my phone out. But then maybe you change topic and you know there's a phrasal verb with planes. When a plane leaves and flies up into the sky, it takes off. So can I say take the plane off? No, you can't do it that one. That phrasal verb stays together. So the plane takes off. The plane took off. So this is good. You might try something and it's wrong. That's no problem. That's part of learning. So if you see a pattern, give it a try and ask, can I say this? Maybe you're learning about morning routines. You have breakfast. Eat breakfast is okay, but naturally I say have breakfast. So could I say I have lunch and I have dinner? Yes, you could. That is a pattern. Or if I teach you take a shower, could I say take a bath? Absolutely. Of course, that's a collocation. When you wash yourself, you take a shower, take a bath. So if you think you're seeing a pattern, try it. Roll the dice, and usually you might be right. And if you're not, you learn something. So win-win. Okay, so that's actually the end of the questions that we'll give you. The last step we're going to do is some phrases when you understand, don't understand, or just want to move on to the next topic. So when your teacher gives you your explanation, these are things you can reply to show them that you understand or not. So Kat, can you give us some phrases for when you do understand?
Yes, these would all be very similar and used in the same way as I understand. Got it. Got it. Thank you. Got it. Okay, I see what you mean. Thanks. Okay, I see what you mean. Thanks. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Okay, I see now. Thanks. Oh, okay, I see now. Thanks. Okay, I get it now. Thanks. Oh, I get it now. Thanks.
Okay. What about if you don't understand? Are there any phrases for that situation?
Absolutely. These would be very similar to I don't understand. Sorry, I still don't quite get it. In English, if something is negative, we often add these little softer words. I don't quite get it. Sorry, I still don't quite get it. I still don't quite understand. Number 2, I'm not really sure what you mean. I'm not really sure what you mean. And especially with this negative, "Oh, I'm not really sure what you mean." Sorry, I missed that. Sorry, I didn't catch that. This would be maybe we didn't understand just a small bit and we need something repeated. Sorry, I missed that. What was that again? Could you say that again? Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you say that again? Now, of course, we run into times where, you know what? I don't get it. That's okay. Let's move on. So, Mark, do you have some sentences where maybe we don't really have time? I'm feeling a little frustrated. I would just like to continue the class and move on.
Yes, sometimes your class is only 30 minutes, and I could spend 15 minutes explaining the difference between the present perfect and the present and the past simple. But honestly, it's better to just keep going. In that case, you can say this to your teacher. Say, that's okay. Don't worry. That's okay. Don't worry. A longer version, that's okay. Don't worry about it. That's okay. Don't worry about it. The teacher will move on to the next activity or the next topic. It's okay. I can look it up later. It's okay. I can look it up later. Look it up is research it, Google it, or research it on my own. So maybe I can find a blog post in my own language that explains an English grammar point more clearly. It's okay. I can look it up later. It's okay. We can move on. It's okay. We can move on. Let's keep going. It's okay. Let's keep going. None of these phrases are rude. You won't look impatient or ungrateful in front of your teacher. They're just phrases to say, don't worry, we'll keep moving. Let's not spend any more time on this. Let's move on.
Now let's show you some examples between a teacher and a student that use some of these phrases that we've just shown you. I'm going to be the student and Mark's going to be the teacher. Let's go ahead and show you some examples of the questions and phrases we learned in the video. Sorry, I still don't quite get it. What's the difference between fun and funny?
That's a good question. Funny means I laugh. Ha 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 ha. Fun means I had a good time. It was entertaining and I enjoyed it.
Okay, so like a comedy is funny, but I had fun on the weekend. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. I get it now.
Do you ever like to go jogging?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last part. Jogging? Am I saying that right?
Almost. It's jogging. Jogging with a J sound. The first letter's J.
Oh, could you type that for me?
Sure. It's Jogging. It's the same as running, but it's a bit slower.
Okay, thanks. I see. No, I don't really like jogging. So, my family and I will be celebrating the Easter holiday this weekend. Is that a thing in England?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely celebrate Easter in the UK. We eat lots of chocolate and we see our families too. It was a really picturesque little town.
Sorry, what was the word before little town? Picture.
Picturesque. Picturesque.
Picturesque. What does that mean? I don't recognize it.
It means very beautiful, like it should be in a photograph or on the cover of a magazine. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay, got it. So could I say a picturesque view?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so there you go. We hope that these phrases and questions will help you feel more confident asking your English teacher questions and help you get a lot more out of your English classes. To help you even more, we've also made a free PDF download for you with all of these questions on it. So your next italki class will be the most useful English lesson you've ever had.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your next English class, and we'll see you again for our next video. Goodbye.